Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Complex Like Wine, the podcast where we talk about complicated things and improve over time, just like wine does. This week we have Whitney. She is a dating and relationship expert, and so, we have the orange lights behind me because at the time this will be released, it's going to be around like Halloween going into November. So, setting the mood for fall and cuffing season and getting to all of that. So, hi Whitney, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Zyra. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so nice to finally meet you. We connected on social media, and so I wanted social media. Obviously, there's like their ups and downs, but what I love about social media, especially with like our platforms, is you get connected with other professionals or other people that have a passion for whether it's mental health, wellness, and anything in between. So it's so cool that we were able to connect online.
Yes, I love that. It can be used for good.
It can be used for good, right? So I want to kind of start off with how did you get into this profession? Tell me a little bit more about you and, what are some of the passions you have in terms of dating and relationships?
All right. So I'll tell you my story. It really starts, I knew that I wanted to be a counseling therapist from the time I was about in middle school. So I studied psychology. And then when I was 23 years old and about to become a psychologist, I had this epiphany. I had been working with crisis centers and drug addiction centers, and I came to realize that people don't change unless they want to change. And I felt at the time that it would be so frustrating to keep trying to work with people and trying to help people change who weren't. So I changed my career trajectory and went into recruiting and talent acquisition. And I did that for 13 years. Also at 23, I thought, what life experience do I have to be teaching and guiding others? So I have gained a lot of life experience over these last almost 20 years since then. I had my son at 24. It was in a toxic relationship that I stayed in as long as I could for the sake of my son. I struggled like heck in relationships in my 20s. I just did not know my worth, didn't know my value, didn't really know how to date. I was settling. I was reaching for guys that were not really giving me what I needed. I had all the bad patterns, all of them. And around when I was 30, I came across a coach named Rory Ray, where I started to learn about dating and masculine and feminine energies. And it totally shifted my energy. And that's when I met and married my husband. And unfortunately, my husband passed away 5 years into our relationship, our marriage. And that was just devastating and very sudden and unexpected. And since then, my whole life has changed. So I left my corporate career. I just had lost the passion for it. I wanted to become a matchmaker, which was this blend of psychology and recruiting that I've done. And so I found a job as a matchmaker. I have some clients that are married now that I've set up that keep in touch with me, which is super fun. But I had some clients that I could set them up on date after date after date, and it wasn't happening. And I got really curious about that. So that's when I got my coaching certification and also trained with Anna Rova and learned about feminine embodiment and just learned everything I could, read all the books about relationships and dating and masculine, feminine polarity and all of this stuff. And that's what led me to where I am today. So today I own my own company and I'm a coach. And I work mainly with women, though I do work with select men who are looking for love. I help people do the internal work that it takes to open to love, to be able to have an amazing, lasting, healthy, loving relationship. And I also help teach the practical skills for dating in the modern world, because in 2023, dating has changed. Technology has changed things. A lot of people are sick of it. They're jaded. They've dipped their toe in the water and had a bad experience and they want to write it off. But just like you said about social media, we can use it for good. There are people that have bad experiences on online dating, but it's also where a lot of people are meeting and falling in love and getting married. And according to a survey done by The Knot, 1 in 3 marriages today starts with an online introduction.
Wow. I did not expect that number to be 1 in 3.
Yeah. And you know what site is responsible for the most marriages?
Which one?
Tinder.
No way.
Because Tinder has a gigantic pool of people. It is huge compared to other dating sites. And so even though there are people on Tinder that are just looking for a hookup or whatever all of the things, there are people that are actually looking for a relationship and looking for love. And it really depends on how you go about dating, where your mindset is at. I have 3 steps that I go through in my program to help people really make the most of online dating so that they can find their one.
Interesting. Wow. So, okay, some context about where I'm at with dating. That way you can kind of have an idea. So, as of yesterday, let me backtrack. I've been single at the time of this recording. I've been single for like 7 months. I've never done the dating apps. I've always met my past partners, whether it was like at school or in person. And, I was like, well, I'm in a place where I just kind of want to meet people, see what's out there. I'm taking away the pressure of needing to find a relationship right now, but I would just like to experience people outside of my circle. So I downloaded Hinge for the first time. And I told myself, I was like, I'm going to keep it for 1 month. If I connect with somebody, meet people online, cool. If I don't, it's okay, because it's not, like, being in a relationship is not the high priority for me. So as of yesterday was the 1 month, so I deleted it. I've met one person. We've gone on 3 dates, which were great. And then I'm actually going on a first date today at the time we're recording this, So we'll see what happens. But I have always been put off with online dating because I hear horror stories from girlfriends or even my guy friends of like, it's just a disaster. They get really drained from it. Things never go anywhere. And my approach with it was just kind of taking the pressure off of like, if I connect with somebody, cool, but I'm not going to force it if I don't. So I'm glad that maybe we can touch more on like online dating and all that, because I know so many people are struggling with it and trying to figure out like, how do you navigate that? Because, older generations might be like, oh, you need to meet people in person. But for people listening, maybe you can relate, like as an adult, when you're busy with work and you're not part of like a consistent club or activity, it's hard to meet people. So yeah, I'm actually really excited to kind of go into all that, and you can share some wisdom with me and the audience listening.
Yes, I love that. Well, congrats. And I think that what you said about taking the pressure off is huge, 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 huge. When I look back to my experience of all the mess of dating that I have been through that have really taught me and led me to this place where I can now teach others, it really was through a lot of experience. I had a lot of pressure. I wanted to find the one. I wanted to meet them. Every date I went on was like, maybe this is the one. Maybe this will work. And there was pressure. And what happens with pressure is, number one, it often makes a date feel like an interview. Because you're like, well, do you like this? And are you like this? And do you want to have kids? And it's like you're trying to decide if this is your forever person when you're just meeting them. And we all know that it really does take about 4 to 6 months at least to really get to know someone. Mm-hmm. So even if you have an amazing first date and you're like, wow, it's love at first sight, he's so cute, he's successful, whatever, like you don't know him yet. And we all have an ex that we were so in love with at one point that later on you're like, oh God, like he could be attractive and successful and whatever. And you're not attracted to him anymore and you don't want to be with him because you know his personality. So taking the pressure off really helps you just really get to know people. So if we think back to the way that people have traditionally dated before online dating, and even it still happens now, is that you just go out with people and you meet people. You get to know the people that are around you at work, at school, in your neighborhood, at events. And when you do that, you get to know people. You take some time to get to know them. You become friends first. And then you decide, oh yeah, I would like to date this person. And then that happens. Or in some other cultures, it's an arranged marriage, but the other people are taking their time to get to know that other person. And statistically, most arranged marriages actually work out well and they're well matched. Although not all the time. I do know some people personally that have had arranged marriages that did not work out. And sometimes they work out because people are afraid to leave or not allowed to leave. So it really is across the board. But the point is that it takes time to get to know someone. And the weird thing about online dating is that the first time that you meet this person, you're on a date. And so that's why we have to take that pressure off. And I advise everyone on a first date that the goal is not to determine if this is your person or not. Because one, it will lead to a date that feels like an interview where you're just asking a ton of questions and it's not really, you're not in the moment, you're not present, you're not feeling it, you're not expressing yourself authentically, you're too busy analyzing and thinking and planning ahead. And we know that when you're in the future like that, you're not in the present. Same thing if you're in the past, if you're really hurt over a past relationship that you can't get out of your head, you really want to be present on a date. So the goal is not to determine if this is your person. The goal of a first date is one, to be your most authentic self, to practice letting yourself be heard and seen and expressing yourself authentically. And the second goal is to have as much fun as you can. So no matter who you're with, and I always advise that you don't plan a first date to last more than an hour, because no matter who it is, if it's a catfish and they are nothing like what you thought, you can still spend 1 hour with that person and you can still practice the act of dating. You can practice being your most authentic self. How can you communicate with them authentically and call them out on them being a catfish and dig in and find out more about this person? A date is not a failure because it's not your person. A date can still be a success because you gained experience with dating, you practiced, you got to know someone, maybe you learned something from them, or they learned something from you. So all of that helps to take the pressure off, whether you're using online dating or you're just dating by getting to know people and getting out there.
Yeah, that's all really good points and tips. That because my last relationship, we were best friends for 7 years by the time it got put on the table for us to date. And so that dynamic is very different from like my last first date and like tonight where I don't know anything about this person. We're meeting for the first time. There's the kind of whole like, who are you? And trying to get past maybe if there's awkwardness or, all of that. Yeah, it's really interesting to just kind of now be with somebody like, okay, we're on a date. What's your name? Like, it's so different.
Yes. And you really do want to just treat it like you're just getting to know someone. You're just there to be yourself and to have fun.
Right. What are, I guess some of the biggest obstacles that you've noticed in your career with your clients or the people you've helped? Because I grew up with a single dad. I have my brother, so I've always been the only girl of the household. So I've always had the male perspective when it comes to relationships and dating. And now when I talk to my girlfriends about their perspective on dating, there's just such a huge disconnect. So I'm kind of curious to learn more and hear what your thoughts on that are.
Yes. So I have 3 foundations that I would say. One is to know and love yourself. And this is huge. And I think people know this in theory, but they don't really understand what it means to really know and love yourself. If you are insecure and you don't really like yourself and you're trying to find somebody to validate you, to feel complete, to accomplish something, that's not going to work. You have to go into dating really loving who you are, flaws and all, because nobody's perfect, not one of us. So it's important that you have a relationship with yourself where you're able to accept your flaws and love yourself. And if you don't, then I don't even recommend dating. Like, you have to start there. You have to start with your relationship with yourself, because that sets the tone for all the other relationships in your life. How you treat yourself, how you allow yourself to be treated. I mean, I look back to my early dating experience, and I allowed myself to be treated badly because I would treat myself badly. So that's always where I start with people when I work with them, is assessing their relationship with themselves, teaching them to have compassion and understanding for themselves, because then they're able to receive that from someone else. And it's funny, if you can't receive your own self-love, then you won't really be able to receive somebody else's genuine love. And we end up in toxic relationships or situationships or just unhealthy dynamics that really won't last and just sort of fill the void for the time being. So that's number one, is to know and love yourself. Number two is so if you want a masculine partner, you have to be in your feminine energy. Mm-hmm. If you want a more feminine partner, then you show up in your more masculine energy. So I say that because I teach feminine embodiment, but I don't tell women, you have to be more feminine. It's kind of like I teach the laws of nature. So if you understand gravity, you don't need a list of 20 rules that say, don't jump off a house, don't jump off a fence, don't jump out of an airplane without a parachute. You just understand how gravity works, and you're able to operate in a way that works with gravity. If you understand masculine and feminine energies and polarity, you don't need a list of 20 rules that says you have to do this, you have to do that. You just understand it. And most women that I know and work with, most, not all, they want a masculine man. They want a guy that's going to take the lead and be able to go to the door and check out that scary noise in the middle of the night. You know, they want someone that's going to kill the spider for them. They want someone that's going to wrap their arms around them and make them feel like a little girl in that moment. And so it's important to understand this, because in our modern world, most women are praised for their masculine traits, right? This whole girl boss thing, and the way that feminism has progressed. And let me just stop and say, thank God for feminism. Feminism really just means that you want equal rights for men and women. So I hope that we're all feminists. But at the same time, feminism and femininity is not a successful woman that's in her masculine, right? That's not feminine energy, and that will repel a very masculine guy. So most women today are in their masculine a lot of the times. Do you know about this much? Is this something you've...
So this is actually something I have been really reflecting on this year, especially after my last relationship. Growing up with a single father, he raised me to be very hyper independent, and I am now realizing I have just been way too stuck in my masculine. Like, all three of my relationships, I have been told I'm too masculine, that my friends or families have always been like, I'm the one that wears the pants in a relationship. And in reality, I think my past partners were definitely much more in their feminine emotionally. And I didn't realize that that was also a result of who I was, because I would just start taking care of everything. I was way too much in my masculine that I wasn't receiving masculine energy, and I wasn't able to be in my feminine. So I'm actually really glad we're touching on this, because part of my intentionality, especially with my last therapist, was kind of getting to a place where, how can I now be in my feminine moving forward? What are the things I need? I need to feel safe. I need consistency. I need communication. All right, now that I'm aware of it, that's why I kind of challenge myself to download Hinge, because now I know what I want, and now I'm not afraid to ask for the things that I need so I can be in my feminine. Yay, we love growth. So now that you're touching on this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited to get into this topic, because that I'm realizing how much of a disconnect I was in, and why I was wondering, like, why am I not attracting more masculine, like the healthy masculine men? Why am I not attracting that? So anyway, but yeah, yes, I'm very aware of this.
Yes, and it's important to realize that this is about energy. So it's not how you look. I mean, a little bit, right? We can feel more feminine and get into our feminine energy more when we dress the part. But it really is an energy that comes from within. Like you said, if you are taking the reins a lot, and if your man doesn't step up and do something, you're like, oh, I'll just do it. I'll take care of it. That is a bad pattern that so many people fall into. And then all of a sudden, you have a guy that you don't respect because he doesn't take the lead. He doesn't do what he says he's going to do. You start to see him as lazy. And if you don't respect a guy, you can't have love. Just like if a guy doesn't adore you, if he doesn't find you magnetic and attractive, then there can't be love. So if you don't respect your guy, it's just going to fall apart.
Man, yeah, I wish I had this conversation like a year ago.
Oh my God, I wish I knew this stuff when I was younger. Oh man, I would have saved a lot of heartache. But sometimes we just have to learn by experience and figure things out. But this is the kind of thing that if you don't learn from somebody, you won't learn from your experience, because you don't know what you don't know. And that leads me to the third point. So the first is to know and love yourself deeply. The second is to be powerful and feminine. So we can talk more again about femininity and that it's not weakness. So there's a big difference. And then the third one is to know your blind spots. Everybody has limiting beliefs that they carry with them from either childhood or past relationships. We have fears and we have patterns, again, that often develop in our childhood based on our family dynamics. And we have to pull those out from the deep recesses within us, look at them and decide consciously, okay, is this a belief that I want to continue to have, or is this a belief that I need to change? And when we're talking about blind spots, knowing how to date can be a blind spot. Knowing how to use online dating effectively to find good people. A lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. And so when I first talk to people about their love life and what their challenges are, they'll give me all these reasons, right? One of my favorite is blaming the city you live in. Because this happens all across the country. Women in LA are like, I can't date in LA. All the guys want Instagram models and this and that, and they have all these excuses. And then the girls in New York City say, well, I can't date in New York City. Guys just aren't serious here. They don't commit. But really, this happens everywhere across the country. And what it is it's really a limiting belief. It's you had some one bad experience and then you've generalized to say that that's just how it is. And our beliefs create our reality. So if that's what you believe, that's what you're going to notice. That's what you're going to pick up on. That's what you're going to create. And then you're going to have the validation and say, see, I told you so. I knew that men won't commit in New York City. Well, I met a guy in New York City and committed and have a great relationship. And I've known tons of other women. So it is totally possible. But we have to recognize what our blind spots are. And that's why so many people now are hiring a coach, a dating coach, a love coach, an embodiment coach, a therapist, whatever it is. It's that outside perspective that can show you what you're missing. You know, because blind spots, if you think about a car, it's the part where you can't see it. Mm-hmm. So that's why it helps to have other people.
What are some other common blind spots that you've noticed?
So one is patterns. This is a big one. And I have these 13 damaging dating patterns that I help people identify. So on a lot of the women that I work with, they fall on one of these two opposite ends of a spectrum. So on one end, you have people that are really nice, people pleasing, want to go along with the flow. They'll often sacrifice themselves and their own needs to make others happy. They put other people's feelings above their own. So it's like, oh, I don't really like this guy and I want to cancel the date, but I feel bad. It's like they do things because they feel bad for someone else, and yet they're harming themselves or doing something that's inauthentic to themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely me, I would say, going into my 20s, like high school, going into college. That I was definitely way in that, where and I think it obviously ties into just the way I grew up, where, just certain circumstances, I was in survival mode. And so you don't want to stir the boat or, rock the boat, whatever it is. And you just kind of just go with the flow and, just put yourself second. And I think that is what got me into my like very hyper masculine energy, where I was like now bouncing on the other end of that spectrum.
Yep. And so the other end of that spectrum is the women that are hyper independent. I don't need a man. I'm the boss. I can take care of myself. And that can work for a while, right? Because it's not a bad thing to focus on yourself. It's not a bad thing to build a career and build a life. But I meet the women that have done that. And then they're later in life and they're like, holy crap, I'm still single. I don't have kids. I wanted to have a family. I thought that if I got my career in order first, then I could meet the guy and have the family. But the problem is they have these patterns. They have patterns of being in their masculine, patterns of being hyper independent, and making a man feel like he's just not needed. And that's the thing is, you might feel like I don't need a man, but if you want one, he has to feel that you need him. Mm-hmm. Because if he doesn't feel that, there's a lot about dating and relationships that is subconscious. It's in our DNA. It's in our evolutionary psychology. We can try consciously to go around it, but a lot of times when it really comes down to it, we have to follow what's in our body, what's in our heart, how we feel, not just how we think. We can't just rationalize our way into a relationship. So going back, these two opposite ends. One is like very people-pleasing and will do anything to be in a relationship. They'll often accept crumbs. They'll date someone that's not really giving them the attention and time that they need. They'll settle for what they can get. And then the other side of the spectrum are the super independent, I don't need anyone. And they just tend to push people away, and people just fade away. They disappear. So there's a lot of different patterns, but that kind of summarizes a couple of them that I find are the most common.
Yeah, this is all super interesting. Okay, so majority of my listeners are guys. So for this next question, what are some things with some of the men that you work with? What are some things that you've noticed? That way for the guys listening, they can have some insight.
Yes. So most women want a masculine man. And even if they don't admit it or realize it, even if they're in their masculine, they really do want a masculine man. And what I have found with a lot of guys nowadays is they're afraid to be masculine. They're afraid to take that lead, to step into that role, to be the one that plans the date, to be the one that asks her for her number, to be the one that takes that risk because he's scared, because he's been rejected before, or because he's been told before by some woman somewhere, I can open my own door, thank you very much. And so then he stops doing it. And I just want to say to all the men out there, don't stop being masculine. We want that. We don't, and there's also this dynamic of the Me Too movement. And yeah, you don't want to be a creeper and just plant a kiss on a girl in the middle of conversation. But what we want you to do is to pick up on the subtle cues, right? Put your hand on my face and see how I react. If I pull away, don't kiss me. If I lean in, you don't have to ask, can I kiss you? Just do it. Like, people need to be more present and aware and noticing the subtle energies and the subtle cues and all of that. So that's one big thing, is just, you don't have to be afraid to be masculine. 99% of women want that, even if I shouldn't say 99% because I don't know for sure. So I want to make sure if I'm saying a statistic that it's accurate. In fact, 86% of statistics are made up on the spot, including that one.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm curious, what have you seen with men and dating and their questions?
Yeah, so actually, I like that you brought up the whole, being afraid to be masculine and all that. So one of my good guy friends, he has shared that he has encountered women that, don't want you to open the car door for them or don't want to accept the chivalry, all that. And so him and I've had conversations of like, what do I do? What do you like? Like, can I open the door? Can I pay for it? Because then does it come off that I am being creepy, or that, even if it's just not even a romantic way, platonically, they want to like do something nice. I've noticed guys are afraid to do it because they don't want the girl to think something else and then they pull away. And so I've told him, like, you can always ask, hey, can I pay for this? Can I open the car door? And then that allows her to give you the option, yes or no. And I've always figured, at least with myself or with my guy friends, like, if you're not sure, just ask. Like, my last first date, he asked me, can I kiss you? And I'm like, I appreciate that you ask. Like, at least you can just, I think it's just better when you've asked a question instead of the whole, like, cat and mouse, like, do I do it? Do I not? And then there's even more of a disconnect. It's been interesting.
Yes. And you can also ask, so a lot of times at the end of the date, a guy will ask, do you want to split it? And the girl just assumes that he's like insisting that they split it. So instead of asking just an open yes or no question, you can say, I want to do this. Is that okay with you? I want to kiss you right now. Is that okay? Like, to me, that's way hotter. Just, can I kiss you? Like,
are you down?
Like, I'm going to kiss you right now. Like that, there's really a power when a man is really in his masculine. And there's a few guys that I follow, Connor, can't remember his last name right now, and Brian Reeves. They have podcasts that are great for teaching men about being a man and masculinity and about women and work and sex and all of these things. And there's a lot of reasons, just like there are reasons that women are in our masculine now, because we've had to compete now in school and in jobs, and we've had to take on the role of being a planner and an executor and providing structure and being goal-oriented. I mean, all of those things are masculine energy. And men have also lost a lot of their masculine energy because one is, they're masturbating, they're using porn, they're getting what they should be getting from a woman. They're just getting it without having to try. And so they're allowed to be this weak version of themselves, not their full potential, and still get the release that they want. Whereas if they had to adapt themselves and grow and learn and change to actually be in a relationship with a woman, to be getting that sex and that release, it would be a very different story.
Yeah, man, I'm loving this conversation. This is so interesting. All right, so let's maybe go on like red flags or like things to, especially for online dating or even not strictly on dating, just dating in general. Like, what are some things that you would share? Like, these are for sure red flags or negotiable. I can't even say the word right now. I'm having a moment. The red flags. Yeah, let's take over. Yeah, dive in.
I would actually like to start with green flags.
Oh, please.
Because I think that too many people are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're just waiting for the disappointment, and they're so guarded and so protected because they've let themselves fall in love before and they got hurt. And so instead of just healing, moving on, and falling again, they just don't actually do all the healing. And they're like, well, I just have to protect myself, and I just have to hold my heart close to me, and I just won't let a guy in, and I'm not. So that's not the answer. If that's you, get help. I can help with the healing process or therapy or whatever it takes. You want to get ready so that you can, show up fully present and not living from your past. But the number one green flag that I would say to look for is somebody with a growth mindset. If you talk to somebody and they say, this is how I am and this is just how I'll always be, watch out. Be curious, dig in, ask questions, get to understand where that's coming from. But the fact is, if you're with someone for decades, right? If you're in a lasting, amazing marriage for long term, you are going to change and they are going to change. The only thing that's constant is change. So if you have someone that's really set in their ways and really stuck, what's going to happen when they do change or when you do change? They're not going to know what to do with it, or they're going to stay stuck and stagnant and they're not going to grow. And what I've seen is a really great ingredient for healthy, lasting, loving relationships is that both people have a growth mindset, right? Like if I'm with my partner and all of a sudden things start to change and I tell him, this thing is happening, it's making me feel sad, I don't appreciate it, I don't like it, I really need you to be this way. You want that person to be able to adapt. And, this kind of brings up the other point that you can't be with someone for their potential and only expect them to change, because you don't have control over anybody else. The only person you have control over is yourself. So you need to have a growth mindset where you're always growing, always learning, and you want to find a partner that feels that way within themselves, that they know that they need to grow, that they need to change. So that's the number one green flag. Another green flag is, how do you feel in this person's company? Too many of us are in our head all the time, and we're just looking at a list. How much money does he make? What's his job? What car does he drive? Or from a guy's perspective, oh, she's hot. That's it, right? Oh, she's beautiful, she's sexy, she's attractive, whatever it is, her eyes, her hair, her butt, her boobs, her body, whatever. If he's really attracted, he can get kind of tunnel vision and not realize that she's treating him like crap, that she's taking advantage of him, or that she's not there. So get out of your head and stop being like, oh, well, my parents would like him because his parents do this. Like, no, how do you feel? If you're with someone that's like a paper tiger, right? Like they're great on paper. They tick all the boxes, but you just don't feel something with them. Give it a chance. Give them a few dates to try it out and see if maybe that feeling grows, because that's a thing. Absolutely a thing. If you're on the fence about going out with somebody, especially on a second or third or fourth date, if you're on the fence and you're not sure, go out with them, because it will give you a chance to get to know them more. Mm-hmm. And then you'll be more clear and you won't be on the fence anymore. You'll be like, okay, this is definite. No. But yeah, we need to take our time to get to know people, but we also have to pay attention to how we feel and not just ticking the boxes. On the same note, if somebody is like, he's too short, he's balding, he's not that attractive, or she's not, and you're in your head, you're rationalizing, this is not someone I want to date, they're not my type. By the way, types are bullshit. Break out of your type and date people that you wouldn't normally date. But if you feel amazing with that person, so maybe they're not what you thought you wanted, But yet every time you're around them, you're just laughing and smiling and feeling comfortable. This is another reason why a lot of times people who are friends first can date and turn into really great relationships, because you know how you feel around that person. You know how they make you feel. And oh gosh, I think back to my unhealthy past relationships. I remember one guy, he was everything on paper. We had so much in common. I was so crazy about him. And yet I felt anxious all the time with him. I felt unworthy. I felt insecure. And yes, most of that was coming from myself, because that's just how I felt already. But a lot of it was coming from him, because he would do things like, well, I can only see you one night on the weekend, not both. Like, is it Saturday or is it Sunday? And this was like a year into dating. And he just was really giving me crumbs and not being there for me. And I really was sprung on him in my head. I was like committed and like, this is it. But deep down, I didn't really feel comfortable and great around him. I felt anxious and you know, sometimes we confuse that adrenaline and anxiety for what love is. And it's not.
That is such a good point. I definitely felt that way with my first relationship, where we have fun, we do this. He takes me all these really nice dates and like fancy blah blah blah, but I was always so anxious, and I didn't realize that that could be a sign I needed to look out for. But yeah, that's a good point.
So do you have any questions that would help you in your dating life?
That's a good point. I would say, I guess I kind of like was part of like the red flags, like things to look out for. I think I've realized now with, the person I went on 3 dates with, all the dates were fantastic, great chemistry, which does not mean compatibility, which I've learned, like, okay. But realizing like a little bit inconsistent, or, just not emotionally available on the same level that I am. So trying to just really take everything at face value now. I'm like, this is where you're at, which is totally cool with you, but that's not where I'm at. So taking a step back. But yeah, that was part of my question, like red flags, like things to look out for. What are some things?
I've got some. So one thing is you should always be able to tell somebody how you're feeling and what you want or need. And if somebody's dismissive of that, that's a red flag. So if they try to say, don't feel that way, or you're crazy for feeling that way, or just not validating your feelings, not accepting your feelings, not recognizing that you're being truthful, and they're trying to say that, they're trying to shut you down, that's a red flag, because you're not going to be able to get anywhere in a relationship with somebody that's not able to validate and respect your feelings. Respect, speaking of that, if they're not respectful of you, of your time, that's a big one. And I will add that it's partially your responsibility to teach somebody how to treat you. Mm-hmm. So this is very different than trying to change someone. You can't change somebody's personality or character, but let's say they call you a lot after 11 p.m. and they're like, hey, what do you do? And they're like taking it down this road that you don't want to go down. You don't have to ghost them and be like, oh, he's just a hornball and he's rude and he's whatever and I can't. Like, no, take a moment to try to shape the behavior. Tell him, I'm not available after 11 p.m. If you want to text me before 11 p.m. So you have to tell people how you want to be treated and what you need. And if you're feeling disrespected, you got to tell them, that doesn't feel good for me. I'm not available for that. This is what I need. And give them an opportunity, because sometimes people just don't know. It's like we said with the guy that won't open your door because he was told by some woman a while ago, I can open my own door. It's like, if you stand there at the door and you say, oh, Well, don't I feel silly standing here waiting for you to open my door? He will reach out and open that door for you. So I think nowadays, one of the big problems with dating is that there's so much quantity out there that people just treat other people like they're disposable.
Right.
And it's like, as soon as somebody does one thing that you don't like, or they wear a pair of sneakers that you don't like on a date, they're like, next. And this is so stupid. Honestly, like, I think everyone does this now, and they just think it's normal because everyone does it. And they talk to their friends, and all their friends are doing it. And that's, again, why I think it's so important to talk to a therapist or a coach, because we know what works and what doesn't. We know what's healthy and what's not. And when you keep going to your mom and your sister and your best friends and whatever, and you're asking about dating advice, they might not really know what works and what doesn't. And they're just telling you based on their experience. And sometimes that can really be off. Maybe they have a different need than you do. And so, yeah, I can't emphasize that enough, that it's just so helpful to get a healthy expert outside opinion to help you with that. So other red flags. It's funny because I think a lot of people are so quick to be like, red flag, red flag, red flag.
Yes.
Cut people off. And that just speaks to what I said about that people are disposable. And you're like, next, next, next. We have to get clear on who we are. We have to get clear on what we need. And usually we don't attract a partner that is exactly like us. We attract our yin to our yang. We attract somebody that complements us. So if you have a very down, chill vibe, if you're somebody that kind of is very patient and kind of works slowly and delicate, that's how I am. That's my personality. And yet my best relationships are with men that are like much more like go, go, go. And, but it works as long as we have clear communication and they know that what I need from them is not what they need and what they need from me is not what I need. But we tend to balance each other out. And it's not that we complete each other because, hey, we're all a complete person already. You do not need someone to complete you. So Jerry Maguire, that's just, that brings up another point, if I can throw this out there, that most of us learn our dating and relationship skills from our families and from TV and movies and media. And this is so not healthy because most of our families are dysfunctional to some degree. Mm-hmm. Your family's job is not to teach you how to thrive and set you up for an amazing, thriving life. Your family's job is to keep you alive. That's it. And so that's why, and you even mentioned this earlier, that when you were younger, you were in survival mode. And I was too, totally. So many of us were in survival mode, and your families they're just there to make you survive. So you're all in survival mode together.
Exactly.
As an adult, it becomes your responsibility to learn how to thrive and to learn what you need. So if you're someone that is stuck blaming your parents and your family for how awful your life is, I encourage you to get out there and get some help and do what you need to do and take the reins, take the responsibility of your own life and stop making excuses and blaming other people. Because yes, there's probably truth in that. Your family probably did screw you up to some degree. Let's just be honest here. But are you going to stay in that place of blame and disappointment and being stuck, or are you going to actually do something about it?
Wow. Yeah. One, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I'm in my head, I'm like, damn, that's really good. Okay, let me, I know so many people listening that are in the dating world right now are going to take so many really good, juicy points out of this. So thank you, Whitney.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me be here.
No.
Want to spread this word. I really want more people to be happy and to love themselves. And I want more loving relationships. And I just see so much toxicity out there, both individually and in relationships, and especially with online dating. So
Right.
I'm happy to get this message out.
No, yeah, it's such an important topic, and I think, like you said, the dating world is just very disposable. It's instant gratification, and I think there's again that huge disconnect of people that are looking for like an instant type of reward versus the people looking for something deeper. And so these are definitely very good things for people to keep in mind. And as we've been having this conversation, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many different topics that if you're down, I would love to have you on again because there's so many things. I'm like, I need to learn more about this.
Well, I would love that. Yeah, there's definitely some topics that we didn't even get to around values and communication and things like that that really can set someone up for a good relationship. Um, I run a program called Dating Done Right. So I have an app. I do individual coaching with people. I also do group programs and I have online courses. So again, I'm just trying to get the word out there and help as many people as I can. But if you look for my name, I'm the only Whitney Kobrin that I know of out there. So if you look up Whitney Kobrin, you will find me. Also, WhitneyKobrin.com is my website, and you can look up my app under Whitney Kobrin. And I offer a free consultation with everybody. So anyone that's like, I don't know, I just want to talk to someone about my dating life and ask these questions. And, maybe coaching is right for you, or maybe you just need a little boost. And so that's what that call can do. But I encourage anybody who's out there that's single, especially if you're struggling, reach out to me. I'm a resource, I'm available, and I absolutely love talking with people about this. I do it all day long, and it just brings me so much joy to help people and to help them see the light and to bring them closer to having the life that they want to have.
Yes, absolutely. For people listening, I'm going to include all her links in the bio that we can easily find her. I'll include the podcast that she mentioned earlier for the men out there. That way, all the dudes, you can go tune in, listen. Even the ladies, maybe you can get a perspective and learn something as well. But yeah, all her information I'm going to include in the bio. That way, you can go follow her, book a consultation, get some coaching, some expertise from her. Again, thank you so much, Whitney. Definitely, we're going to book a part 2 because this was really good.
Awesome. Thank you, Zyra, and good luck on your date tonight. I hope that
Thank you.
you practice being your most authentic self and have a ton of fun.
Thank you. No, I'll send you a recap afterwards. I'll let you know how it goes, most definitely. But guys, thanks for tuning into this episode. I hope this was some good, juicy stuff for you to take with you into cuffing season, quote unquote. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. All right, bye guys.